The train let out a long sigh as it slowed to a stop in the small station nestled among snow-blanketed hills. Fine powder drifted from the rooftops like glitter from the sky. Bié, known for its quiet winters and untouched fields of white, seemed more like a forgotten page from a storybook than a place to live. The platform was nearly empty, just a few locals shuffling by in thick coats and scarves, their breaths forming soft clouds in the air. Amanda Owusu stepped off the train, clutching the handle of a modest suitcase. Her gloved fingers trembled slightly, more from the cold than fear, though fear had indeed followed her here. She paused, letting the biting Hokkaido wind wrap around her as if testing her resolve. The coat she wore was stylish but clearly too light for the climate, and her Ghanaian skin, kissed golden brown by the African sun, seemed to flinch under the unfamiliar chill. Yet, beneath the discomfort, there was peace, a fragile, hard-earned kind that hummed softly beneath the surface. She had come north not to escape the world, but to lay down the weight of it. Tokyo had been too loud. The hospital halls too clinical. The diagnosis too final. 1 year, her doctor had said. 18 months if her body held on. She had nodded, packed lightly, and boarded the first train north. Not to argue with death, but to learn how to live with it. Her lodging sat just beyond the village's edge, perched above a traditional tea house like a secret kept from time. The building exuded an old-world charm. Shoji doors, dark wooden beams, and a thatched roof forever dusted in snow. Inside, it smelled of roasted barley and dried yuzu peel, earthy and faintly sweet. The elderly couple who owned it, Mr. and Mrs. Tanaka, welcomed her with a simplicity that Amanda found soothing. They asked no questions when she said she had come to rest and write, offering tea instead of small talk, warmth instead of concern. Her room was small but clean, just enough. A low futon, a desk by the window, and a heater that hummed like a cat in deep contentment. From her window, Amanda could see the road that curved past the tea house and the quiet rhythm of village life that played out beneath snow-laden roofs. But it was the flower shop across the road that drew her attention most. Its wooden sign read Yuki Hana, Snowflower. The windows were always misted from the warmth inside, yet vivid colors pushed through the fogged glass like whispers of another season. Peonies, lilies, camellias, all blooming impossibly in the dead of winter. The storefront didn't match the sleepy hush of the town. It pulsed with quiet life, like something daring to hope. Amanda began watching the shop from her window, her notebook open on her lap, pen hovering above the pages. The words hadn't come yet. Not since arriving. They rested somewhere inside her, like petals curled tight, waiting for spring. But still she watched. Waiting. Hoping that something, or someone, might stir them awake. On the 5th day, she stepped inside the shop. A brass bell jingled softly above the door, ushering her into a cocoon of warmth. The scent of cut stems, citrus leaves, and damp earth wrapped around her like a shawl. Sunlight slanted through the back window, touching the wooden floor in patches of pale gold. Behind the counter stood a man with sleeves rolled up, meticulously trimming the browned edges of orchids. His movements were fluid, careful, each cut deliberate, as if flowers deserved dignity even in decay. His thick black hair fell slightly across his brow, and he wore a charcoal gray apron faded from use. He didn't look up. "I'd like some camellias," Amanda said, her English-laced Japanese hesitant but clear. He paused briefly, his focus still on the orchid. Then a low voice responded, "There are better flowers." Amanda blinked, caught off guard by the abruptness. I like camellias. They're too delicate for this cold," he said, finally glancing her way. "But they endure." His words settled in the air like a slow snowfall. Amanda's lips curved into a smile, the first one that felt real in weeks. He met her eyes then, sharp, slate-colored, unreadable. A flicker of something passed between them. Recognition, perhaps. Or curiosity. Or simply the meeting of two weary souls in a quiet place. "I'll wrap them," he murmured and turned away. His name, she would learn later, was Aizawa Ren. He was a man of few words and even fewer expressions, but there was a quiet attentiveness in him. A way he wrapped each bloom in tissue and twine with reverence, a way he handed them over without ceremony or stare. Amanda returned the next morning. And the day after that. Sometimes she bought flowers. Other times, she just sat near the corner heater, notebook in hand, letting her fingers drift across the pages without purpose. Ren never asked what she was writing. He never even peeked. But somehow, his silence gave her room to breathe. Their exchanges remained sparse, stitched together with the hum of space and unsaid things. "You like chrysanthemums? They remind me of my grandmother's garden. You work? I was a nurse. In Tokyo. You quit? He asked. Yes. There was no judgment. No pity. Just the snip of scissors and the scent of water-soaked stems. Ren's silences weren't cold. They were safe. After months of being reduced to a patient, Amanda found solace in being simply someone, seen but not dissected. One evening, as snow swirled down in gentle spirals, Amanda returned to the shop later than usual. Her joints ached more than usual. The tremor in her right hand had grown harder to hide. She wore a bright scarf like armor and smiled through the fatigue, but her body, loyal as it had once been, had begun to betray her. Ren was closing the shop when she arrived. Sorry, she said, breath fogging. I just needed color. He didn't speak, just held the door open for her. Inside, the warmth embraced her. The flowers had already been watered, the shop faintly scented with pine and winterberries. Amanda lowered herself onto the stool by the heater, her bones grateful for stillness. Without a word, Ren placed a cup of steaming tea beside her. Chrysanthemum, he said. Good for nerve pain. Amanda stared at him, surprised. How did you? He walked towards the counter, silent once more. She took a sip. The tea was bitter at first, but bloomed into something warm and steady. Her eyes lifted to his back. I'm Ghanaian, she said suddenly, as if unspooling something tightly wound inside her. He tilted his head slightly in response to what she had just said. I know I stand out, she added, chuckling softly. I get a lot of stares. Ren glanced at the snow drifting outside the window. Not here, he said. Just snow. Amanda followed his gaze. The world outside was hushed and white. No noise, no judgment. Just falling snow. Snow's honest, she whispered. Ren looked at her then, really looked, and for a fleeting moment, something in his gaze cracked open. A question, a shadow of sorrow, a flicker of memory. Then, like a snowflake melting on skin, it vanished. That night, Amanda sat in her room, the camellias unwrapped and cradled in a glass of water by the window. Their petals, blush pink and impossibly soft, held her gaze. Outside, the snow continued its quiet descent, blanketing the village in silence. Inside, in the hush of her heart, something stirred. Not loud, not triumphant, but alive, just enough. The days that followed fell into a gentle rhythm, one Amanda hadn't expected, but quietly welcomed. The snow deepened over the town like a slowly drawn curtain, muffling footsteps, softening rooftops, and turning the entire landscape into a watercolor painting of quiet whites and grays. For Amanda, every morning began the same way, with aching joints and silent prayers whispered into the steaming surface of barley tea. Despite the slow betrayal of her own body, Amanda refused to rot inside her room like an unused page. She needed purpose, rhythm, something more than just waiting to die. That was why she began volunteering at the local health clinic, a modest building tucked near the temple. The clinic's doctor, an elderly man named Dr. Mori, was skeptical at first. But after watching Amanda organize the medication shelf in perfect efficiency and win over a crying toddler in under 3 minutes, he started referring to her as the angel from the city. Amanda quickly became known in the town, not just as the foreigner with the bright scarf and kind smile, but as someone who made others feel warm even in the dead of winter. She taught the children simple English words while bandaging their scraped knees, and helped the elderly with their prescriptions, gently repeating instructions with the clarity of a practiced nurse and the tenderness of someone who understood time was precious. Yet, as her days found structure again, Amanda's nights became harder. When the town slept and the heater's hum was the only sound, the pain returned with a vengeance. It started with the numbness, first in her toes, then her fingertips. Her hands trembled when she brushed her teeth. Her balance wavered when she got out of bed. More than once, she collapsed behind the tea house where no one saw her. She told no one. At Yuki Hana, the flower shop remained Amanda's sanctuary. By now, she was part of its routine. Each morning after the clinic, she crossed the snow-padded road, stepped into the fragrant air, and removed her gloves with fingers that barely cooperated. Rin never welcomed her, not with words. But her stool near the heater was always clean. A cup of warm tea, sometimes chrysanthemum or sometimes ginger, often appeared beside her without her asking. There was comfort in the predictability of their silences. But Amanda wasn't blind to Ren's peculiar attention. He noticed things most people didn't. The way she favored her left side when reaching for the teacup. How she sometimes clenched her jaw as if swallowing a scream. The tremor in her hand that she tried to hide beneath her sketchpad. One morning, As she attempted to lift a medium-sized bouquet off the counter, her arm gave out slightly, and the glass vase nearly slipped. Ren was beside her in an instant. No hesitation, just swift surgical reflex. "You shouldn't lift anything heavy," he said quietly, without meeting her eyes. Amanda smiled through her embarrassment. "You sound like a doctor." Ren paused. Then, without replying, he returned to his work. It wasn't until days later, at the village pharmacy, that the pieces began to fall into place. Amanda was browsing the back shelves for liniment oil when her eyes landed on a dusty stack of old magazines. One cover caught her attention, not because of the headline but the face. Dr. Aizawa Ren, the prodigy of precision. She froze. The article was from nearly a decade ago. The photo showed a much younger Ren in surgical scrubs, arms crossed, standing beside a state-of-the-art operating table. The caption underneath read, "Japan's youngest neurosurgeon pushes boundaries in spinal research." Her heart thudded. She reread the name 3 times before slipping the magazine back onto the shelf with trembling fingers. It couldn't be a coincidence. She was sure of that. Back at the flower shop, Amanda didn't mention it. But something in her gaze changed. The silences between them, once peaceful, now pulsed with unspoken questions. That evening, as snow began to fall again in soft spirals, her phone rang. The screen lit up with a familiar name, Dr. Aizawa Saki, her primary neurospecialist in Sapporo. Amanda hesitated, then answered. "You're in BA?" Saki's voice was crisp but layered with tension. Amanda smiled faintly. "You knew. You gave our office your forwarding address." A pause. "Then you've met my brother." Amanda's breath caught. "So it was true." "He doesn't know," Amanda said slowly. "Does he?" Saki was silent for a moment. Then she said, "Amanda, he knew the minute he saw you. He reviewed your case personally. I didn't want him to. But he asked." "Why?" "Because," Saki sighed. "He's the reason I became a doctor. And also the reason I almost quit." Amanda did not say anything else, and Saki didn't elaborate. She rather asked Amanda how she was faring, and also told her what to do if the pain returned. Then she hung up. The next day, Amanda stood before the flower shop, heart pounding beneath her coat. The cold wind stung her cheeks, but she didn't move. Her eyes traced the shop's wooden sign, the soft golden light spilling from its window, and the shadow of Ren inside, arranging white lilies. She stepped in. Ren didn't look up. "I know who you are," she said softly. His hand stopped moving. "I saw the magazine. I also read the article." He still did not respond. "You were a neurosurgeon." Ren finally raised his head. His expression remained unreadable. Amanda continued. "And your sister, she's my doctor. Isn't she?" Silence stretched between them like a fragile stem. Then Ren spoke. "She wasn't always a doctor. Not until after I failed her." His voice was low, layered with something darker than guilt. Regret. A wound that hadn't closed. "I tried a high-risk spinal procedure," Ren said quietly, his eyes fixed on the floor. "She was my patient. My sister." Amanda's eyes searched his face. "But she's walking now." He let out a slow breath. "Yes, but not because everything went right. The surgery was incomplete. I was able to stabilize her, give her mobility again, but not without cost. Her recovery was slow, painful, and I couldn't finish what I set out to do." Amanda's voice softened. "You still gave her a chance." Ren shook his head. "No one else would touch the case. I was the only one even willing to try. And when I couldn't finish it, his voice faltered. "I stepped away. I left medicine. I couldn't trust my hands after that." Amanda stared at him. "Then why did you help write my case report?" His eyes flickered with something sharp. "Pain, maybe. Or fear." "Because it reminded me of what I couldn't finish," he said quietly. "Your condition, it was nearly identical to my sister's. Reading your scans, your history, it felt like I was looking at my own failure all over again." Amanda's brow furrowed. "So, it was guilt?" He shook his head. "Not just guilt. You were still fighting. You hadn't given up. And maybe helping with your case, from a distance, was my way of trying again. Safely." Amanda took a step closer, heart thudding. "I didn't come here to be saved, Ren. I came here to live. To feel something again. Before it's too late." His gaze held hers. And for the first time, Ren looked at her not as a nurse, or a patient, or even a reflection of his past. He looked at her as someone who, just by being alive, by not giving up, reminded him that maybe, just maybe, his hands weren't only made to fail. That night, as Amanda walked home beneath a sky swollen with stars, The camellias she carried seemed heavier than before, but not in a burdensome way. More like they were blooming with possibilities she hadn't dared to believe in. The town remained silent, but something inside her had shifted, like a petal loosening from a bud. And for the first time, Amanda wasn't only counting days. She was looking forward to the next one.